There we go.
I was just placing books and you've done the same. Isn't that funny? And then I'm thinking, what did I bookmark?
Well, I have to admit, I only got my copy of Peasy yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to get to know her yet, but I'm really looking forward to reading it.
Thank you. And yeah, I feel like I should tell everyone I know, like, don't feel pressured to read it.
Oh no, I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to reading this book for so long, and it's finally here. So yeah, very excited.
That feels like lots of expectations to me.
No, don't feel that.
Yeah, because there's some things I have learnt from doing interviews with other people, like not me in charge, like the other people thing. So how long do you have? Because if I go on for longer, I used to think that was great, just having a chat, and now I'm like, hang on a minute, they could have had people knocking at the door and somewhere to go, and they were too polite to say, Anna, stop talking, you know.
No, look, the only thing I have is there is a small person sitting off camera who is currently entertained with television and snacks, and she's got toys around, but I don't know how long that will last. So,
well, there's a natural interruption process there. That's okay.
Yeah, mine's kind of at that age where she might be entertained for hours, or it could be like 2 minutes and then she's like done. So just never know.
Everyone knows. I think all the parents, and even people who aren't parents because they've normally babysat or, you know, have kids in the family, know what that feels like. It's always this state of just slight anxiety that everything you're trying to do will stop at any second.
Yeah. And I'm trying to get better at just kind of rolling with that and saying yes and doing stuff anyway, and just being like, it might not go to plan. So
yes. Well, what was I going to say? I'm having this weird morning. And I feel like I'm going all different colours again. I will never sort my lighting out. I turned off the fix my appearance button because I only put it on for one thing the other day. I don't normally have it, but because it makes actually really bad, it can make a bad quality image. I can be kind of fuzzy, just for mine. Everyone's connection's different. Yeah. I've found anyway, since doing my first bits of media and things, you get more self-conscious about some really weird things. Did you find that?
Yeah, I think like I would just it didn't matter what it was. When I was first doing publicity for Neverland, I would just overthink everything, and like just it wouldn't matter. Like it could be, you know, giving someone 2 minutes of time, and I would just like plan it to the nth degree. And I think I'm learning to kind of let go a little bit and just trust that I will be able to answer basic questions rather than feeling like I need to preempt everything, and just trying to give up a bit of that control.
Yeah. See, I'm on the opposite journey of never bothering with that. Like I've always just been a bit of a fly by the seat of your pants person. And then now thinking, okay, maybe I should just plan a little bit. Maybe I should just make sure I've got something they could actually write down, you know, if they're putting it into print and I talk in such a rambly way and never finish sentences and things. It's just my kids laugh all the time that I'll get halfway through and then start something else because either I got bored with the end of the sentence or I just decided to change. You can't see, I'm doing it again, but you can't do that when people have to write it down
No, and like, I was kind of a bit the same. And the reason I was sort of planning everything was my little one was only, I think she was 6 months old when the book came out. And doing a lot of the publicity in the lead up, I just hadn't slept and I had no idea what I was doing. And at that point, the book felt so distant because, you know, you write it long before it comes out. And I was just like, it just felt like this thing from this other world that people were asking me about. So,
my goodness. 6 months old.
Yeah, I just kind of felt hard. Like try and sound coherent, and it was just tricky.
Far out. And so also you have a PhD, and did you do that with Neverland?
I didn't actually.
Okay.
I wish I had.
Tell me everything. I'm such a PhD geeky nerd person. Tell me.
I want to ask about your PhD as well. I'm really, whenever anyone has a PhD, I'm like, oh, I know you absolutely don't want to talk about this, but I want to hear about it.
You go first.
All right. Yeah. So I did a creative writing degree at Flinders University here in Adelaide, and then went on, did my PhD, and I looked at what I called campus click crime novels, which are basically books like The Secret History, which I love. It's one of my favorite books. And I found a whole lot of books that had sort of been published a bit after The Secret History, mostly in the early 2000s, that were kind of following a similar formula. So I was like, this is amazing. But no one was writing about them. And all the sort of the criticisms, criticism that's been written about campus fiction is all about sort of books with academic protagonists and stuff. So I was really interested in these books that were kind of, they weren't YA, they weren't, you know, professors running around campus. And I just got really fascinated. So I wrote about that. Really, it was just kind of passion project.
That's what they all should be, isn't it?
Yeah.
But so campus fiction and I don't know the book that you referred to.
The Secret History. So it's by Donna Tartt. It was written in 1992. And it's kind of on the surface, it's basically just a murder mystery. But then every time you read it, you kind of find more and more layers. And it's this really clever book because it's kind of, the narrator doesn't really play an active role in the story. So he's kind of telling the story of these friends that he really looks up to, but they commit this murder. So he has this, he's quite an unreliable narrator, and he really romanticizes their story. But so you have to kind of have this constant thing of, okay, what he's saying sounds really romantic, but actually the reality of that is terrible. And then pretty much all the action of the story somehow happens off page, but then it's still really compelling. So it's like everything is hidden in this book. And yeah, I'm not doing it justice. I'm doing the rambling thing now.
No. I can hear, and I love the Onion books, the ones with all the layers that you can just keep digging away at. So yeah, I get that.
So it's one of those kind of books, and it really taps into that kind of, I think that kind of desire to know what goes on behind the sort of gilded closed doors, but then also kind of how all of that sort of falls apart as well. So you kind of get this, yes, I want to be part of the secret world, but also it's a terrible place to be, and not, the fantasy is not what it appears to be, sort of thing. So
campus very much as in university, academic, elite worlds. Is it US or Australian?
It's US. It's set in it's set in a fictional university that's tear scraping. That's really based on Bennington University, which is where Donna Tartt went. But yeah, what I found with these books is there weren't a lot of Australian ones. They were mostly US and UK. Most of them had a male protagonist who didn't play a particularly active role in the story. So for my PhD, I wrote a book that never got published, but it was set in Australia, it was set in Adelaide, and it had a female protagonist who took a very active role in shaping the story. So that was kind of my, like, let's play with this genre and twist it, and
Okay. And it didn't get published, but do you think you would ever try that again, or?
I don't know. I haven't looked at the manuscript for a long time. I think it would need a lot of work. It felt a bit like an academic exercise, but the good thing was I learned so much from writing it, and I had a wonderful supervisor, Ruth Starkey, who's incredible, and an incredible editor as well. I learned so much from studying with her, and then I sort of put that aside and wrote Neverland straight away after that. So
Okay. And did you have a theoretical, oh God, I'm such a nerd. Did you have like like theoretical framework and that you looked, what? I didn't do a creative writing PhD, so that's new to me, this idea of putting them together.
Yeah. So Flinders does have quite a heavy research component with the creative writing PhD. The exegesis makes up sort of 30 to 40% of your thesis. So I used sort of drawing on the books, because a lot of them have these origins in sort of Gothic fiction and stuff. So I actually used a psychoanalytical framework for it, and I got to read all the kind of crazy early stuff like Freud and Lacan and stuff like that, and kind of play with that, which, is quite fun to use in a literary context, not so much in a real world context. So it was playing with that sort of stuff. And also The Secret History, the characters they're classic students, so they're really into ancient Greece. So I also looked at a lot of like ancient Greek philosophy and things like that, which was really fun.
That's so good. I loved it whenever I could find, because I did, one of the books I looked at had, I'm trying to think how I got away with using this. I didn't do Blood Tide. Melvin Burgess Blood Tide, but I didn't use him. So I'm thinking, why on earth did I do this? Maybe it was one of those things you go down and then you don't go there.
Yeah.
No, I know what it was in. There's a book called The Rat and the Raven by Kerry Greenwood, and she had an oracle who had sort of poetry in there, and there was a lot of like wormwood and Welsh mythology, and so I got to kind of down the Welsh mythology route. Oh, it's so much fun.
Those tangents you go off on are just
love it.
The best. Like I went into, and it was such a tangent into the Victorian Gothic quite deeply for a while and got lost there for a bit, and that was great. I could quite happily just get lost in the Victorian Gothic forever. So,
I love it. I don't think people realise this is what goes on. I don't know what they think we do, but this is pretty much what we do. We're like, I had 9 main texts, and so
wow.
Because it's like 3 per chapter. I divided it up very kind of in a pagan way, I guess, because it's like 3s everywhere. It's like the 3 main analysis chapters and then 3 texts. And each one gave me an excuse to go into something. And
was yours an English PhD, English Lit?
Yeah, young adult fiction. But it was a really weird circumstance because I had English literature, academic history, but in terms of my own study, but then I was a qualified teacher. And so I went into an education faculty with the teacher librarians, and that's where they put us because there's no humanities at QUT. And so you were either in creative industries or, I don't know, nowhere. Like there was, I don't know, for an education. So we were stuck in an education format. So I still had to do a methodology and I still had to do things that you don't always do in a humanities PhD. So we were a bit of an odd bunch, but there were enough of us that we sort of stuck together in that way, and had a really good research group. So it was just actually, it's probably in my mind is just a straight literature PhD, but with the young adult fiction focus. No, gee, it's hard to kind of, it was a little bit of a moment. But I loved it.
When did you finish yours?
In officially 2009. So I'm sure you know that means it was finished. You know, like
sometime
the date.
Before then,
the date on the photograph. I can't think of the dates. I had restrictions on the literature I could use. It was like 1990 something to 2002 or something. So I couldn't study anything outside of the dates, and it had to be fantasy, and it had fantasy, but that included sort of clones. Are you there?
Yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah.
And you're there?
Yeah.
Do you need to go to, is she choking?
No, she's fine. She's just...
all I heard was a cough.
No, I think some just water went down the wrong way. She seems quite happy. She's still watching the TV. So yes, so you finished in 2009.
Yeah. So there was a big break after that of all sorts of stuff. But I'm supposed to be asking you questions, am I? No?
This is me deflecting. I'm like, let's talk about your PhD.
Hang on a minute. It's a chat. It's a chat.
Yeah.
But so I finished that, then I got divorced and had a life drama for a while.
I finished 2013, graduated 2014, and it was just then like, what am I doing with my life? What do I do now? Just like fell in a hole and was like,
so weird. And I was used to having something like all the time. There's always something in the back of your mind when you have your PhD. You never put it down.
Yeah. And it's such a big project, and it's sort of all consuming in a way. And by the time I finished, I was working full time as well. And I actually went part-time when I finished to be like, I'll have 2 days a week to write. And it was just like, oh gosh, I feel at a loss now because I'm so used to being so overloaded. And then it was just like, oh, I've got some breathing space. Have I made the right life decisions? I don't really know. And then Neverland sort of came out of that just total uncertainty of what am I doing?
Of what on earth you're doing? Well, that's a pretty good thing to be coming out of that. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think I got a bit lucky because at the time it didn't feel like I was creating something that was going somewhere. It was just kind of like, I just need to write something. But yeah, because I went straight from school to university and straight from undergrad to postgrad, and it was just kind of like I'd been in this institution pretty much all my life, and then suddenly it was like, okay, you're out in the world, and it was pretty fun.
Wow, that's intense though. And so do you think the institution appearing so heavily in Neverland is part of processing that?
I think probably. Yeah, I don't think I'd really
not to throw a curly one at you, but I'll just
yeah. And I think even the book I'm working on now, like that idea of some kind of institutional framework it hangs so heavily over the text. I think that might actually just be a thing that's going to haunt my work forever.
But, if it's a world you know well, then they're the things that we write. If you have such a deep understanding. I've never written anything academic into... there's a thought. I would worry that I would get academic. Come back. Oh no, wait, there you go.
Yeah, how are you going in the current lockdown?
Yeah, it's just this weird life of the blend between, and do you know what it reminds me of is my PhD, because I was at home.
You keep bringing us back to the PhD.
I'm sorry, but that's exactly what it feels like. Because I was at home with children. I found out I was pregnant the day I got my scholarship. So I did, by the time I had finished my PhD, I had 2 children. So it took me 6 years to do the PhD and two children. So I was always parenting and PhDing, and that's what I did. I had 1 day a fortnight to go to uni, and the rest was done at home. On the whole, there were some periods of childcare, and so it reminds me of that, where I am forever here trying to do something and then forever interrupted, basically.
Yeah.
Is that how are you going?
My gosh. Well, I'm not trying to do a PhD with 2 small children. So better than that, I think. Yeah, I can imagine, like, for me, the PhD was like, it was such a period of freedom until I sort of started working full-time as well. Then it was a bit trickier, but it was, for a lot of it, I was single and just living out of home for the first time and doing my own thing, and it was a really lovely period of time where I could just be on campus, and I had this wonderful group of friends that I made doing it. So that was like golden years for me. But now it's kind of it's that situation of trying to get stuff done while also having a small person around. So and not a lot of childcare. She's now 1 day a week I have. So
oh, there you go. Yeah. And do you have? Are you writing at the moment?
I'm trying to. It's sort of, I think the first few weeks of lockdown, probably that first month, I just found it really difficult because it was just so much going on outside. But since then, it feels like starting to get back into a routine. And I think, we're quite fortunate in South Australia. Things have been going quite well. I mean, it still kind of feels like there could be the second wave coming, but it does feel as though it's not quite as scary as I initially thought it was going to be when I was like, we could be in lockdown for 18 months, so
yeah. I kept thinking it would be forever, and now my oldest is back to high school, so there you go. That happened.
Yeah, they've opened the playgrounds here, which was kind of like, oh, okay, we can venture outside again. This is, but cautiously, because you're also kind of like, I don't want this to sort of happen again. So
second coming. Absolutely. Do you think parenting will change your writing? Do I ask men that question?
I think it probably has.
I do. Sorry, I just had a moment there.
I think it kind of, it's a good point to make, because but I think it kind of does in a way. I think it's put me back into, obviously not a YA, but a much younger way of thinking, and to kind of, I think, I feel so much more protective towards young people now, I guess. And I feel, you know, I guess more of a responsibility for my characters in some way, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm more aware of what maybe the kids today are kind of going through and stuff, and kind of wanting to give them something that, you know, sort of makes it all a bit easier, I guess, which I think was always the aim, but now it's a bit more, yeah, it feels a bit more real, I guess.
But that's probably the weirdest chat.
A bit rambling and, you know, interrupted and just spooky things going on. Because I mentioned the Gothic, so it was just like haunted computers.
Yes. No, but that's okay. See, that's what happens in a chat. That's the whole idea, isn't it? Anyway, and we can always chat again.
And I let go. I didn't over prepare. So.
And you know what? That's what people love about OzChat, is that it's just, you never know what you're going to get. We are the box of chocolates.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there we go. Thank you so much for coming on OzChat, and hopefully we can chat again.
Thank you so much, Anna. Yeah, look, anytime. Like, I'm literally free anytime. There just might be interruptions. So.
What lovely interruptions they are. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. See ya.